Between 1979 and 1981, Atlanta, Georgia, lived through one of the darkest and most terrifying chapters in its history. More than 24 African American children and young adults disappeared or were found murdered, leaving parents terrified, neighborhoods on edge, and police struggling to find answers. The case came to be known as the Atlanta child murders, and it forced the entire country to pay attention. At the center of the investigation eventually stood one man, Wayne Bertram Williams. To this day, his name remains controversial, viewed by many as a serial murderer, by others as a scapegoat, and by some as a mystery still unsolved. This is his story, the story of the victims, and the story of a city caught between fear, grief, and uncertainty. Wayne Bertram Williams was born on May 27, 1958, in Atlanta, Georgia. He grew up as the only child of two school teachers who were respected and stable members of the community. They provided him with a structured and supportive upbringing, and by most accounts, Wayne's childhood was ordinary. From a young age, he showed a strong interest in electronics, radio broadcasting, and communication technology. He was curious, intelligent, and often described as ambitious. As a teenager, he built his own amateur radio station in his bedroom, attracting attention in his neighborhood. He spent hours experimenting with audio equipment and dreamed of working in entertainment. Wayne attended Frederick Douglass High School, where he continued his involvement in radio clubs and broadcasting activities. He was seen as a bright student, though some described him as socially awkward and eager to impress. After graduation, he chose not to attend college. Instead, he pursued a career in media, claiming to be a talent scout and music producer. He attempted to form and promote local musical groups, often promising young people that he could help launch their careers. Some considered him hardworking and creative. Others saw him as someone who exaggerated his achievements and desired recognition. By the time he was in his early 20s, Williams was known in Atlanta's South Side community, but he had never managed to achieve the success he envisioned. No one at the time had any reason to believe that this young man, intelligent, ambitious, and unusual but not violent, would soon become the primary suspect in one of the most disturbing criminal cases in American history. Atlanta was a city undergoing rapid growth. It marketed itself as the city too busy to hate, a symbol of progress in the American South. But beneath that optimistic image, many neighborhoods struggled with poverty, racial tension, and limited resources. The first disappearance seemed isolated. Then another followed, and another. Soon, a disturbing pattern emerged. Young African-American boys, many between the ages of 7 and 14, were vanishing. Their bodies began to appear in wooded areas, near roadsides, or in rivers. As weeks turned into months, the list of victims grew. The fear grew with it. Parents stopped letting children walk alone. Schools held safety meetings. Neighborhoods organized patrols. Police cars became a common sight after dark. By the end of 1980, the situation escalated. What started with children spread to teens and young adults. The city was living in a constant state of terror. National media networks descended on Atlanta. Politicians, civil rights leaders, and community activists demanded action. The FBI joined the local police, forming one of the largest task forces of its time. The pressure was enormous. The public needed answers, and the police needed a suspect. During the early months of 1981, investigators noticed an important pattern. Several victims were found in or near the Chattahoochee River. Forensic experts and behavioral profilers theorized that the killer was dumping bodies from bridges late at night. In response, the police launched a massive surveillance operation. Agents began watching bridges throughout the city for suspicious activity, especially during early morning hours when traffic was low. They waited week after week, hoping for a break. It came in the early hours of May 22, 1981. Around 3 a.m., officers stationed at the James Jackson Parkway Bridge heard a loud splash in the water below. Seconds later, a car slowly crossed the bridge, a white 1970 Chevrolet station wagon. Inside was Wayne Williams, then 23 years old. He claimed he was on his way to meet a young woman named Cheryl Johnson for a music agitation. But when investigators tried to find her, the name led nowhere. No one by that name ever came forward, and no evidence supported his story. 2 days later, the body of Nathaniel Cater, a 27-year-old man who had recently gone missing, was discovered in the river downstream. Police now had a lead, and Wayne Williams became their prime suspect. Over the next several weeks, the investigation intensified. Detectives watched Williams closely, interviewed people who knew him, examined his house, and looked for any connections between him and the victims. Then came the most significant breakthrough. During the investigation, forensic scientists found unusual fibers on many of the victims' bodies. Fibers from carpets, bedding, clothing, and animal hair. When police searched Wayne Williams' home, they discovered carpets and blankets with distinctive green and yellow fibers. His family also had a German Shepherd whose hair closely matched fibers found on several victims. In the early 1980s, fiber analysis was still a developing field, but this case would later become one of its landmark examples. Investigators claimed that the combination of fiber types found on the victims was extremely rare, and that Williams's home environment matched them. The circumstantial links began to build. Police believed they had enough evidence to connect Williams to several victims, especially young male teens he might have approached with promises of work or music opportunities. By June 1981, they decided it was time to make an arrest. On June 21, 1981, Wayne Williams was arrested and charged with the murders of Nathaniel Cater and Jimmy Ray Payne, an adult whose body had also been found in the Chattahoochee River. Although the public associated him with the child murders, prosecutors made a strategic decision. They tried him only for the 2 adult cases, hoping that the fiber evidence and behavioral pattern would indirectly tie him to the others. The trial began in January 1982 and lasted nearly 2 months. It quickly became one of the most widely watched court cases in the country. Prosecutors presented more than 30 types of fibers linking Williams to the victims. Witnesses claimed they had seen him with young men near the times they disappeared. Others described erratic behavior and suspicious movements. Despite the high-profile coverage, there was no direct eyewitness, no confession, and no DNA evidence. Everything hinged on fiber analysis, expert testimony, and circumstantial connections. On February 27, 1982, the jury delivered its verdict. Wayne Williams was found guilty of both murders. The judge sentenced him to 2 consecutive life sentences. After the trial, police announced that they believed Williams was responsible for at least 23 of the child murders. However, he was never formally tried or convicted for those cases. Many families disagreed with the official conclusion, believing their children's cases remained unsolved. The Atlanta child murders remained surrounded by debate, doubts, and unanswered questions. Wayne Williams remains one of the most controversial figures in American criminal history. A brilliant, ambitious young man with dreams of success, accused and convicted at the center of a nightmare that gripped an entire city. Whether his conviction solved the Atlanta child murders or merely closed a case filled with unanswered questions is a debate that continues more than 40 years later. But what cannot be forgotten are the victims. Children and young adults whose lives were lost, whose families still carry the pain, and whose stories continue to remind us of the importance of truth, perseverance, and justice. If you like our content and want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button below.